Hello! Today on Keto Corner, I want to keep talking about the ketogenic lifestyle, and today we're going to add in fasting. So stay tuned to that for the very end when I bring up that topic of fasting. So the first thing I want to mention today is another group of medical professionals that often receive certification as functional medical professionals. But sometimes they don't, and this is chiropractors. I have gone to chiropractors my whole life. Since high school, I've been helped by many of them. Some people don't really like chiropractic services, but I want to make a point, and that is that you can oftentimes go to a chiropractor just for their nutritional services. Yeah, chiropractors are very, very integrative folks, and they are very knowledgeable in nutrition. You can call chiropractors in your area and ask them if they use ketogenic eating plans as therapeutic in their practices. And if they do, that would be a great one to latch onto. But chiropractors can help you look at your blood work. They can order blood work, and they can talk to you about supplements. They're very good with supplements. They have access to supplements that you can't just get on Amazon. So they're really good with these kinds of things. I just wanted to mention chiropractors as another very helpful group of people that really are so used to working very closely with clients and are very helpful. The next thing I want to talk about is, again, carbohydrates. So last week I had talked about how we all kind of have a personal ceiling with carbohydrates, and we've got to live below that ceiling for good health. And it's individual. It's a little bit different, and some people can actually handle a little higher carb diet than others. And I talked about what that might look like for those few individuals, not a very big percentage of the population. But what I want to talk about here too in regards to carbohydrates is that carbohydrates attract water. So if you're eating a standard American diet, you have got bloat. This is very normal. So if you start eating ketogenically, you're going to notice the bloat go away a lot in your tummy. That'd be the first place. And so as this water is leaving your system, you're also losing some electrolytes. So with the ketogenic way of eating, monitoring electrolytes becomes very important. The best source of electrolytes is a really high quality salt. So I am talking about a Himalayan salt, the pink salt, or a Celtic sea salt. Either one of these will help immensely for you to keep up your electrolytes. So you want to drink water too, because you're not going to hold on to water, and you're not going to hold on to the electrolytes, sodium, and lots of other, magnesium, potassium. So you want to have this extra salt. So you want to put the salt in your cooking. You want to use this salt topically. And if I'm ever feeling either lethargic or tired or off or hungry when I really shouldn't be hungry, the first thing I'll go to is 1/8 or 1/4 of a teaspoon of this salt, and I'll just down it with some water. And I would say 9 times out of 10, I feel better just after doing that. I can feel almost an immediate lift. So that's a really good thing to keep in mind. Another thing I want to bring up in this video is how ketosis is really all about using fat as your energy source. Did you know that you have 2 options to energize your body? One is fat and one is glucose. So the folks eating a standard American diet are using glucose as their primary source of energy, whereas someone eating ketogenically is going to be using fat as the primary energy source. So what's the difference? Well, I love campfires, and I love this image. If you're about to make a campfire in your backyard and you collect, all the twigs you can find, and you'll be able to light that on fire, right? You can get that started. But does that fire warm you up? And does that fire last very long? The answer for me, I have found 100% of the time, is no. And it's kind of similar with carbohydrates. Whereas if you get some kindling and you put a nice big log on there, you get the kindling going hot enough that it will ignite the log, then you've got a fire that's going to warm you, it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to last a long time. So that's sort of the difference. So with the ketogenic way of eating, your energy source is more like this very hefty, long-lasting log. What else do I want to say about that? Yeah, and so when it comes to, this energy source as being premier, really you want to be sort of flexible. You want to be able to use either one. But here's the thing. Within our muscles and our liver, that's where we store, the glucose that we use primarily. We can store about 1,700 calories of glucose to use as our energy source. And when that is done, then, we don't have any more. Then we're out. With fat, we can store about 70,000 calories. So that's quite a lot more. And this I'm talking about just a normal average weight person. I'm not talking about someone who has a lot of extra fat, someone who would really want to lose fat. I'm talking about a normal body. So you see the energy comparison is very, very different. And you can see how eating ketogenically, you can go for a long period of time. You can exercise longer and still feel well, and all of these things. And it's actually good to be flexible, to be able to do both, be able to use both as an energy source, but your brain prefers fat and your body runs better on this fat fuel. Now, that said, I want to say another thing about carbohydrates. And I mentioned this in the last video, but I'm going to keep saying it. There are no essential carbohydrates. None. Zero. That 1 teaspoon of glucose that you have in your blood, your liver could actually make that through a process called gluconeogenesis. So you do not need to eat carbohydrates. Your body will be able to produce what it needs, and it really needs technically very little in terms of carbohydrates. Whereas the body must have essential amino acids. Okay, this comes predominantly from protein. It comes from meat predominantly. And meat is a very good source of these essential amino acids. And by essential, I mean you have to eat food, particular foods to get them. Your body's not going to be able to make this. So, and then there are also essential fatty acids from the fat in your diet. So in this fat, of course, part of that is included in with the meat, right? So one very good source of fatty acids is found right in the meat that you're eating. But it's also found in all of the stuff that we use for baking and sauteing, butter and coconut oil and ghee and olive oil, avocado oil, these kind of fats that we use, and that, we'll top our vegetables with butter, so you'll see some fat there too. Also dairy, is a really good source of fat, and so are nuts. So, you kind of see where the diet is providing these essential acids that we need. And this is what really builds your hair, builds your muscles, builds your bones. So we need these things to maintain our body mass, to maintain ourselves, and to rebuild and to replenish. So these are very, very important. And then fasting. Last thing I want to talk about here today, really important. Fasting is huge. I only waited until right now because of how addictive carbohydrates are. And they make fasting very difficult. So, and I'm going to talk about carb and food addiction in some other video. It's a very important topic. But I think it's really hard to fast happily if you are still experiencing a lot of carbohydrates in your diet, because they are very addicting. When you eat a lot of carbs, you get a dopamine hit, and your body, you just kind of keep wanting that hit. And so by reducing the carbohydrates, you start walking away from that, and you ready yourself for fasting. So the first stage of fasting is really within having 12 hours of not eating anything, not consuming anything, really just water. And then another 12 hours of where you eat your meals. And in the beginning, and especially for children, I would say, this is 3 meals a day. And this would be children on up to anybody who's growing and maturing. Once you're beyond that stage and your body is all there, at that point, you can use the number of meals that you consume in a day as a lever. Just like you can use fat as a lever too. If you have extra fat, you don't necessarily want to have a ton in your diet, because your body's going to use the fat that you consume first. So if you want your body to use the fat that's actually sitting in your belly or sitting on your thighs, then you're probably going to have to drop down and use that, lower your fat consumption as a lever. Same with meals. You can use your number of meals as a lever with your fasting. So like for me right now, I'm 53, almost 53, in the middle of menopause. 2 meals is working well for me right now. But I say 3 meals a day for children and anybody growing. And then from there on, it's more of a discernment. If you don't overdo carbohydrates your whole life, this is going to look different than someone who has been, living above the carbohydrate ceiling for years and years and years. So this is very personalized. So then not eating in between those meals. So you want to get enough protein and enough fat in the meals, especially starting your day off, to not have to eat in between those meals. And if you get to the next meal and you're like ravishingly hungry, then perhaps you didn't have enough protein, perhaps you didn't have enough fat in that previous meal. And then also I mentioned the salt thing. A lot of times the salt, you're really craving nutrition. You really need those minerals, trace minerals. And that can really have a lot to do with your hunger pains too. Okay, so for this 4th week, just keep thinking about carbohydrates, keep thinking about what your personal ceiling is for carbohydrates and living below that ceiling, and understanding that you don't need carbohydrates. They're not essential. Your body is equipped to give you exactly what it needs, but that these amino acids are essential. These fatty acids are essential. And start working with fasting. Go for that 12 hours. See, during that 12 hours when you're not eating is just as important as the nutrition that you're getting during the 12 hours that you are eating. So this is really basic, but both sets of 12 hours are really important. All right, thank you for joining me, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.